Hey everyone, it's Joe Axman here. I'm with Joao Borges, and he has agreed to be interviewed by me. Joao is in Portugal and he has a school he's starting up. So, Joao, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, Joe?
I'm doing good. I'm glad we could have this interview finally. I know we've been
Yes,
planning this.
we've been following your posts about the confinement, and I think we share similar ideas, and we like the way you're so outspoken about things, and that's why I decided to give you this interview.
Thank you, thank you. Well, Joao, I know you have some things you want to talk about, but do you want to start with how you got started in macrobiotics?
Yes, I mean, the first time I got in touch with macrobiotics, I was about 12, and this was back in the 1970s. I remember going to having a lunch at some friend's house, and we were about maybe around 8, 9, 10 people around the dinner table. And suddenly someone says, "Oh, sorry, I'm not eating this." And she pulls up a Tupperware, and it looked like it's some kind of brown color. And she said, "Sorry, I can't eat the food because I'm macrobiotic." And I looked at the food, and it was, for me as a child of 12, so disgusting. I said, "How can anyone eat that kind of thing?" And she looked really strange and really weird. And what's really funny, about a few years later, I was exactly in that same situation. And of course, eventually I got out of this. But is it, the question I would like to put back to you is, how is it that macrobiotic people socialize when they're invited out? What is your experience, Joe?
How do macrobiotic people socialize when they're eating out?
Yeah, with some friends. I mean, you've got
It depends.
non-macrobiotic friends.
Well, I come from a different background because I was born into it. So when I hang out with people my age who are also born macrobiotic, it's very different than people who are coming into macrobiotics from, not being born and raised into it. Macrobiotic people who are born into it are much more relaxed. So it's
Yeah.
different. But yeah, I
The
mean, there's all
question,
different kinds.
the question is, have you got non-macrobiotic friends?
Oh yeah, I mean, I not anymore. I have very few friends anymore, but I have in the past. I had a lot of non-macrobiotic friends. Most of my friends, or all
So,
of them, were non.
so the question is, how do macrobiotic people socialize with non-macrobiotic people when they're invited to their homes?
Uh, it's a tricky question. I don't know. I mean, it probably differs from person to person. Some of them are very uptight. Some are more relaxed. There's different styles, I think. What's
I
your
think that,
experience?
yeah, I think that used to be an issue, maybe like 20 or 30 years ago. I think we all now are finding some kind of middle ground. Is the
Hmm.
people know that they invite us, they know that we don't eat meat or cheese or etc. And we're also more relaxed, and we have quite a wide approach to macrobiotics. But I remember now that it's changed, but like when we started 20 or 30 years ago, that used to be a real issue. Okay.
Mm. Yeah,
Okay, so I'd like to continue with my story.
yeah.
No, no, the first time I got in touch with macrobiotics, and I was horrified about the look of the brown rice. And then about 5 years later, I'm in my first year at university, and suddenly I've always been like a healthy child. Uh, I've been protected, middle class, good student, obedient. And I remember being in my first year at university, and then it's like, like suddenly someone switches the light off, and I had a complete breakdown. I was very ill. I was emotionally run down. It's like my life suddenly it changed from one day to the other. I couldn't recognize myself, and I was in total chaos. And then my parents were very worried, and they took me from one doctor to the other. I went to England, I went here, and they were, because I'm an only child, and they were completely desperate about, my situation. And I was quite ill. So much sugar, because I was brought up on very rich foods, meat 3 times a day, sugar, this and that, and nobody could help me, and one day I decided to start doing yoga. And at yoga, there's a lady that says, what's been helping me is yoga and macrobiotics. So I know this name is in my head. And one day I'm walking down the street and I see a sign saying UNIMAV, which stands for stands for union, MA for macrobiotic, and V for vegetarian. So it's union between the macrobiotic and vegetarians. It used to be a restaurant. And I went in there and I saw a little book by Michio Kushi, which says macrobiotic can cure any illness. Mm-hmm. And so I decided to buy the book, and I decided to start doing macrobiotics on my own. And that's how I started to do macrobiotics. But it was a very different type of macrobiotics. I got another book, which is Zen Macrobiotics by Joao. And he said that if you eat 100% whole grain, you can get cured. So I decided I'm going to try that, And then for 4 months, I did nothing but brown rice diet. And then sometimes it used to be like brown rice diet. And sometimes I used to pressure cook brown rice with aduki beans and ijiki seaweed all together because I needed some protein. Wow. So after 4 months of this, I was up in a small village where my parents come from, no electricity, nothing. And it's just myself and a few relatives. And I was cooking all this diet and eating and not drinking water at all. Why? Because water, it was written in the book, water was very yin, so we should reduce the amount of water. So I go from a normal size to about 42 kilos. Do you know what 42 kilos in?
No, I don't.
Really, it's unbelievable. It's after 4 months, I was almost dying. I was so thin that I was almost, evaporating.
You're like the cloth that's wrung out.
Yeah. But the funny thing is, that in Portugal at the time, we had, this thing called military conscription. I had to go into the army. And suddenly I was feeling so great. My body was I had half of the weight, but mentally something was working for me, Yeah, and suddenly, I get a letter from the military and say, you've got to come because you're being conscripted to be part of the army. So, okay, so I'll go because I have to go. Otherwise I'll go into prison. But I said that I've got to, in the military, I've got to keep up with my macrobiotic diet. I couldn't cook. So where are my cereals going to come from? And I went into the same shop, Unimav, and I saw these oat biscuits, these dry oat biscuits. So I bought these dry oat biscuits, like a big stash. So I took them with me to the barracks. And then I was starting to realize that you needed to eat some vegetables as well. And I saw this, the thing looked like a radish, pickled radish, which was called takwan. Did you know what takwan is?
Oh, do I know what takwan is? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I used to love takwan. I don't eat it anymore.
Yeah, and I took takwan as my vegetable. So this was my diet at the barracks. It was oat cookies, dried oat cookies, and takwan because of the vegetables. So I was doing all these exercises, and
yeah.
The bell for the canteen used to ring. I used to run into my bed, and I used to eat these oat cookies and takwan for vegetables, and my weight keeps going down and down and down. And at some point, this guy's my officer says, no, this guy is not up well in his head. The hospital, because I was literally, I was literally. If you looked at me, it's almost I was almost dying, because it looked like this guy is going to pass away any moment. I was so thin, it's unbelievable. So they took me into hospital, and from hospital, they discharged me, and that's how I survived being macrobiotic and in the military. So that's quite an interesting story, right?
Yeah, no, that is interesting. It's like
crazy, and after a while. Okay, so I get discharged from the military, And my mother is really worried about me because she says, no, this can't be right. No, this can't even be a macrobiotic diet. So she goes back into that same restaurant and she says, is there anyone that can help my son? Because what he's doing, and she started to tell the story about what I was doing. And I know that what he's doing is not right. And they told her, yes, no, there's this guy, that just been to the United States studying with this American guy that was Michio Kushi, and he's just come back. He's only like a kid, but he looks quite good. And that person was Chico, Chico.
Mm-hmm.
Francisco Veratosh. He's just recently passed away, but any macrobiotic person will know his name. I mean, he was a kid. He was like something like 25 or 26, and I was maybe 22 or 23. And that's when he started to put a little bit of more sense into my diet. And that's how I started slowly evolving. I remember that at the time, I was with 4 or 5 or 6 months of eating very, very young. I was I was dying physically, but something in my brain kind of opened.
Yeah.
And I was looking at the trees, and I was seeing the aura of the trees, and I was listening to this music in my head. And I was, I had so much perception of everything, but it wasn't really sustainable because a little bit longer on that diet, and I think I was going to die.
Sure.
So I've got to this mad experience as I started.
You were getting close to the spirit world.
Very close to the spirit world, indeed. But that's how I started, and I understood a lot of things in my head that are still with me, this year.
Yeah.
Maria, my wife, says I never ever recovered from that experience. So this is my start of macrobiotics.
Very good. Yeah. And then what? Then what happened next?
So what happened then is my parents eventually got fed up with me because they said if you want to be macrobiotics, it's too much for us to cook, because I was doing all this cooking at home, and then I was also starting to eat with Chico, but they said you've got to go away from Portugal, and you've got to experience life away from the house. And that's when I started to look where the macrobiotic communities are. And eventually I found a macrobiotic study house in England, which was the macrobiotic study house of Peter and Monty Bradford. And I went to do university in England, and I was studying at university and living with Peter and Monty Bradford. And that's really, through that food is when I really started to develop physically, and all my life started to flourish, because for the first time I was being nourished with some really, really good food. I started to dance, I started to enjoy myself, and then become a free person. So I'm very grateful to that macrobiotic study house of Peter Monty Bradford. Actually, I was so grateful for that study house that I started to, in my holidays, I started to see where I could do work studies in other macrobiotic study house. So I wrote to a number of macrobiotic study house, and I went to Sweden with Stephen Akoff, Stephen and Karen Akoff. I wrote to Bill and John Spear. I spent some time with them. I went to do a work study at the Kushi's Institute at the summer camp. We were in 1989. They held a big conference. And this is a lesson, really. If you really want to know how to study macrobiotics, doing the course is not good enough. How do you learn macrobiotics? You learn macrobiotics by living with other macrobiotic people. And that's just how you used to do it. That's how many people learned with Michio Kushi. This tradition of the macrobiotic studies is the best way to teach macrobiotics.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. Do you agree with me, Joe?
I agree with a lot of what Michio says. Yeah.
Now, do you agree that the houses are a very important part of?
Absolutely. I have been around in several different macrobiotic communities. I lived at the Kushi House. I went to the Kushi Institute in Beckett and in Amsterdam, and I've traveled around. I spent time in Alaska community. So I too have been in several different macrobiotic communities, and yes, every time I learn new things, even though I was born and raised into it, it's just you get a feel for how different people practice, and it's very varied, and so yeah, there's a lot of good things to gain by living there.
I think one of the reasons that why macrobiotics are being held back, and not so many people are doing it, or other people are giving up, it's because macrobiotics is a community practice. And if you're just by yourself, it's actually extremely difficult to be macrobiotic by yourself. And the macrobiotic study houses are not there anymore because it's difficult to share your life with other people as well. I mean, then myself and Maria, we had a macrobiotic study house for 20 people, and it's difficult, to not to just embrace someone into your family, and you bring in on their problems. There's lack of privacy. So this is one of the reasons why those macrobiotic houses don't exist anymore. Or do you know any macrobiotic house that is functioning at the moment?
Well, there are several macrobiotic communities that I know of, or at least, well, I know at least two, but I mean, there's an Alaska community, there's a community in France, but study houses in the way that they used to be run, not so much, not so much.
Yes, unfortunately. Okay, so I'm just going to carry on with my story, and then
Yeah.
it's at that macrobiotic study house that I actually meet my wife, Maria, and then we get married, and I decided to stay and live in England. And it's 1995 where we go to a macrobiotic summer camp, because she drags me along, and let's go to this macrobiotic summer camp. And I was this vision, because a few years earlier, I had been at the Cush's summer conference, and they had almost 1,000 people. I think it's 1989 or 1988. This is the time of the very big conference. And I get to this UK macro gathering, and I see there 50 people, middle-aged, and doing some circle dance. I say, oh no, my God, And it was such a shock, because I had such a wonderful experience at the Cush conference. And I go there, and it's totally the opposite. It's low energy. It's not very exciting. And I said, okay, so next year, they wanted someone to organize, the UK macro gathering again. I said, okay, me and Maria, we put ourselves hands up. We know a group of people, because our dream was to turn the UK macro gathering in something like the Cush conference in the United States. And the Cush conference that I experienced, because I think then it changed a lot, but in 1988, I think it's 1998 or 1989, it was a fantastic event, and I had a dream of turning the UK macro gathering into something like that. So that we started to organize what we called the One World Camp, and that the first year we went from 150 people to 120, then we went from 120 to 50, then we went from 250 to 400, then we went from 400 to 800, then we went from 800 to 1,100.
Nice.
And for many years, I think myself and Maria, through the One World Camp, we did the largest macrobiotic gatherings in the world. And
Congratulations.
In our life until very recently. Actually, organizing the One World Summer Camp was a wonderful experience, but it was also a way of looking at how the macrobiotic community is dysfunctional, because what we attracted was a lot of jealousy. And at the beginning, I was a young kid, and I had this dream of transforming the world and this and that. And I was doing this pure out of my own heart, because I wanted so much to push macrobiotics out into the open. And I see all these old macros around me, jealous of the success and trying to undermine me. And that's when and this is when I finally, bit by bit, I started to wake up that in macrobiotics, there's a lot of politics, and everybody has got such a big ego. And, and society, no, they're criticizing people like me. They say you're not macrobiotic because you bring all the things that are not macrobiotic. You know, macrobiotic is shiatsu, is diagnosis, so you can't have any dance, you can't have any music, any arts, any this and that. You know, this is all bullshit. You know, and what it is, you know, this I learned how dysfunctional the macrobiotic scene is. But you know, Joe, it's not just, you know, the macrobiotic community that is dysfunctional. I learned no later on that it's all communities around some kind of spiritual purpose. They're equally not dysfunctional because people want to shine and people want to be successful, and they're always thinking of like-minded people as competitors. And I think that happens as well in the United States. I don't get along with this. That person doesn't get along with that one. And there's all, you know, and we're fighting each other to death. And suddenly there's no more macrobiotic movement to fight for, you know, and this is human nature.
Joao, I just want to say that I was just talking with my father this morning. I met with him right before we sat down here. Literally, and we were just talking about this, how macrobiotics is divided and everyone seems to be sort of out for themselves, and especially with you know, now that Michio is gone, it's very splintered, and we would like to sort of unify macrobiotics and forget the individual differences and just bring it together in some way, some fashion. So I agree with you, so please continue.
Yeah, because it also stands up. Everybody has got a different view of what is macrobiotics, but above all, it's ego. And the question is, what is macrobiotics anyway? What is your definition of macrobiotics, Joe? Tell me.
I mean, I don't know on the spot how to define it. It's food. What I like to think about it primarily is food awareness. You know, I think we have something extremely unique, and that's one of the reasons I'm devoting so much time and energy towards it, because I think macrobiotics is in its infancy, and that it has actually, you know, thousands of years lifespan. Realistically, like that, we could really take this very far for generations and hundreds of years to come. But we have to understand that it's about being aware of food and how food affects us. Not just food, but we have something unique, let's put it that way. And I don't want to overemphasize the food, but food is a primary part. You know, it is something unique that we have in macrobiotics that has huge potential. So we're just starting to really understand what macrobiotics is, I believe, and we'll continue to grow and evolve with it. Yeah.
Okay, so in order to understand what is macrobiotics, you've got to understand at the history of modern day macrobiotics, okay? And this is very, very important. And one of the problems that's arising is people are not studying the history of macrobiotics. Okay, history of modern day macrobiotics comes from Sagen Ishitsuka. And he had a movement called Shokuyo, which means healing by diet. Okay, so the macrobiotics started with a different movement that was called, you know, the Shokuyo. And the Shokuyo was about food, okay? Then along comes, you know, Jojo Sawa, and it starts to mix, you know, this diet, you know, that he is so keen on this diet because that diet has healed him from the tuberculosis he had. But also, he starts to study Oriental metaphysics. So he started actually to blend, you know, the two. And the people in the Shokuyo movement were so fed up with him that they kicked him out. Okay. So and what Osawa actually, you know, developed is a way of developing judgment. Okay. So macrobiotics is not at all like Shokuyo. Because Shokuyo is centered around diet, and what Osawa created is a way of developing judgment. And of course, with that judgment, then you eat brown rice and vegetables. You don't eat meat and French fries, okay? But what is the difference between Shokuyo and macrobiotics? Is that Shokuyo is a diet. and macrobiotics is a way of developing judgments. It's not a practice. Okay, and so macrobiotics is a way of developing judgment, through the unifying principle, unique principle, which is in and yang, and that is macrobiotics. Okay, and as long as you exercise judgment in your daily life about what foods you eat, how you live, where you live, how you see your relationships, when you see life and you make choices according to yin and yang, when you're on the path of developing judgment on the particular path, that is macrobiotics for me.
I like that because I always like the idea of having choices rather than dogma rules, where some things say this is this, that's that, but if you include the judgment, then there's always a choice to be made, which aligns with my own understanding of macrobiotics, how I go about it.
Okay, so the problem then is when you have something that is based on judgment and not on a particular diet, because nobody can agree on a particular diet anyway. So some will say you're vegan, others say you're not vegan. So some of you should say you eat this, so some will say you should eat that. Okay, that's already a problem. But then when you have a movement that is designed on judgment, the problem is that the practice becomes different from individual to individual, because every individual has a different judgment, so every person sees life in a different way. So there's not a unified practice. No, there should be a unified practice. Now, what we should always stimulate in the macrobiotic education is the development of judgment. Macrobiotics must be and is and should continue to be a way of developing judgment, according to the 7 principles of Joao Sauer. That's where it all comes from.
I would agree with that. I would just add one distinction, if I may, that if somebody is starting out macrobiotics and they're sick, for a time being, they should listen to their counselor until they get healthy.
Of course, No, developing judgment, it doesn't mean that you're not taking advice with other people, that maybe you look at, and the reason why you go to these people is because you recognize in them that judgment is a bit higher than yours, so that's why you look for guidance. They've got more experience and more judgment. That's all it is, right?
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, and I would like to get another thing straight for the record. Now, people say that macrobiotics comes from Youthland. This is a total lie.
Were you listening on my conversation this morning? I was saying the same thing.
This is a total lie, and this is total bullshit. And it goes like this because people don't read the books of Joao Sauer. Okay, Joao Sauer started the movement, and he was aware of Youthland. Okay, and he actually ranked all the different forms of medicine, and I can't remember if from 1 to 7, like 1 is the lowest and 7 is the highest, and he puts down there that macrobiotics is on the 3rd or 4th level. So he thought there were some good things of it, but he didn't think much of it. Okay, but he kind of liked to know the name. And many years later, at the end of his life, he wants to give a name to his movement that is growing, and he's thinking all these names. So he's thinking like macrobiotic is a good name, but it's already from Youthland. So he wants a name that has macrobiotics in it, but it's different from macrobiotics. So he comes up with this idea of Zen macrobiotics, and he writes a book about Zen macrobiotics. But no, this is a problem. When this book it comes out, the Zen people and the Zen monks are very upset with him. They say, this is not Zen. And they attack Joao Sauer and say, you've got to drop Zen. So Zen macrobiotics, there's nothing to do with macrobiotics, then suddenly becomes macrobiotics again. And this is why, that's the origin of the word macrobiotics. Nothing to do with the macrobiotics from Youthland. Stop it, this is total bullshit. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's okay. You say that Joao Sauer this or what? No. Joao Sauer nicked the name to make Zen macrobiotics, and then because of the Zen monks, he had to drop the word Zen, and it becomes only macrobiotics again, but nothing to do with the macrobiotics of Euclid.
Thank you for saying that. Thank you. I agree.
Okay, so so that's it. And what do you think about the COVID-19 and the confinement? Can you tell me your opinion of what's going on?
How much time you got? I mean, well, there's a lot. There's so much to say. Oh my gosh. I think that the hype is out of control. They're using it to control people. There's a lot of factors in there. They're not addressing the real issue, which is people's immunity and health.
Okay, listen here. You know how you enslave a population? Now we all know the formula. You instill fear. Instill fear. You manipulate the media. You instill fear and you enslave a population. Look at what's happening in Hong Kong. Hong Kong always resisted no China, right? Now comes COVID. They're all afraid. China moves in and there's no resistance. So because they've instilled fear. Okay.
Yeah.
And the lesson is, if you want to be a free man, you cannot have fear. Fear and freedom do not coexist. Macrobiotics' supreme value is about becoming free. And if you're fearful, that's the opposite way of macrobiotics.
Well, yeah, I understand what you're saying, but fear, you cannot just wish fear away. I completely agree with you. But fear is a difficult thing for people to deal with. It's hard to overcome fear. But it is the ultimate freedom to be free from fear.
Okay, so the story of COVID is very, very easy. Okay, so Mitchell says that we're coming up to the cycle in history, which is the destruction by fire. This COVID process, it doesn't start now. The theory of the precession of the equinox, the 27,000 year cycle, where on one hand you've got the destruction by water, and on the other hand the destruction by fire. We're coming now to the destruction by fire. Mitchell says the destruction of humanity is going to manifest between 2020 and 2036. So we're coming now to the destruction by fire. The viruses and etc. is another symptom of the destruction by fire. Okay, so what is happening is very easy. We are destroying the environment. So the environment is becoming more challenging. Okay, and we're also destroying our own bodies inside, our own immunity. So the combination of a more aggressive environment, because we have destroyed our environment, with a weaker immunity, that's the cause of COVID-19 and all the problems that are going to come now. And it's like this, it's as simple as that. The environment gets more aggressive, and we are more fragile inside. Of course, the people are fearful, and what we have to do collectively, we've got to look after the environment, and individually, we've got to look after our own internal environment. So there's a collective responsibility, and there's an individual responsibility. So what is your vision about it?
I think everything you're saying sounds accurate, and I think that because of that, there's a great opportunity for macrobiotics, the macrobiotic community, to rise and thrive and gain recognition and influence people in a positive way to take responsibility and care for the health, because we have all the information now. Science is catching up with us. The doctors agree with most of the main points within macrobiotics. And so we have the backing, we have the right environment to get this information out and to help people. I think there is incredible opportunity right now for macrobiotics and the macrobiotic movement.
It is an incredible opportunity, and crisis always means opportunity. This is what I say to my students all the time. Crisis equals opportunity. But what is one point? I get so upset when the people that have been macrobiotic for 20 or 30 years that are in certain positions of leadership, and they're afraid of the virus, and they're
Mm.
advocated, these fear-mongering measures. And I tell you, and these are the same people, that are conspiring and are making sort of politics. And I'm going to make some enemies now, and I'm going to tell to these macrobiotic people that are fear-mongering. If you advocate, the theory of fear, you cannot lead in macrobiotics.
Mm.
Get out, just practice for your own, but do not try to lead. You cannot lead macrobiotic movement from a place of fear. Not possible. Just get out.
Mm. Mm. That's a strong message, and I think I agree with it.
You know why I make so many enemies? Is because I speak from the heart and I speak the truth. When Maria tells me, don't say that because there's friends and they've got weak lungs or this or that. I don't give a bullshit, If you're afraid of the coronavirus, you should not be in the position of leading any kind of macrobiotic movement, any kind of macrobiotic association. You should be ashamed of yourself, actually, because you're a bad student. Okay, go back to your practice, develop your natural immunity, but don't go and make politics. Don't go and try to lead anything.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like to hear that. What can I say?
So what's the problem with macrobiotic people now? Is that there is a lack of leadership, and we need to know where the leadership is, and people are going to appear,
Yeah.
But we need to be strong leaders ourselves. I mean, if Micho was around or if Osawa was, just imagine what would happen if Osawa was around. He went into Africa, and the story goes that he contracted a tropical ulcer just to prove to Dr. Albert Schweitzer that macrobiotics could cure any illness. And a tropical ulcer is very, very serious illness, nothing to do with COVID. If George Osawa was alive now, we would be going to, all the places, all the hospitals, and you wanted to prove that if you're macrobiotic, that COVID cannot possibly affect you. That's what you would do, and Micho would having a clear voice about COVID-19. Chico would have a clear voice about COVID-19. Albert Nelson would have a clear voice about COVID-19. But these all people, they're all dead. Your father is talking in that way, but we need more people like that.
What we need are these people who are strong leaders with a big voice to live long enough, to live longer. That's one of my issues with macrobiotics. They're not living long enough. We need to change that. Over 100. 100 is my personal benchmark. I think macrobiotic teachers need to be 100 or older.
And they quite failing. And we need to change macrobiotics to improve more, to inbuild more movement, because not everybody can be Micho. And Micho had many problems himself because his lifestyle wasn't that healthy, was it? I'm a big admirer. Look, he's behind me. I adore the man. I've got fantastic stories with Micho, but I would not want to follow exactly his lifestyle, because in the end he died of cancer, and he made a lot of concessions for his dream. But I think the new style of macrobiotics must incorporate movement, whatever is yoga. I do yoga every day, healthy diet, not to look at your emotions, your relationships. It should be a little bit more encompassing. Also, we bring the yin, the arts, the crafts, the music. But I think that we are getting there. And I think, I still believe that macrobiotics judgment is the only way out of this crisis. And people will appear and we will build a strong movement.
Yeah, I mean, my understanding, my vision of macrobiotics is that it's alive. And if we just use a simple analogy, it's not like a plant, but if it were a plant, it would be growing new leaves, new branches, bigger, stronger, all the time. And what that means is that we also cannot be attached to the past. know the past, but not hold on to it. You know, it means always being alive in the moment, being present, and allowing for new growth to happen.
Yeah,
So
of course.
not,
The times are, if the environment is changing, you've got to change your practice. You know, the only thing that never changes is judgment. You know, yin and yang, doesn't change. Five transformations, doesn't change. You know that the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. No, your meridians, don't change. So judgment doesn't change either, but your practice has to change, because we are learning. Well, of course, George Osau himself, he made so many mistakes. His son died at the age of 4, and then he said, I learned that children shouldn't be given a lot of salt. No, that's a tough lesson, isn't it? When the child of 4 has to die. Okay, so we have to learn, we have to adapt, we have to evolve, but through always a certain kind of judgment, which is the judgment that comes from yin and yang.
yeah. And humility. A lot of times I think macrobiotic teachers lack humility, thinking that in order to validate macrobiotics, they have to invalidate everything else. But I don't think that's true. I think macrobiotics is 100% valid, and so are other things. And there are other, even bigger views. There are people who have, who are, quite frankly, in my opinion, fully enlightened, who are teaching today. They don't teach about macrobiotics, but it doesn't invalidate macrobiotics to acknowledge these people. I don't have any problem saying there are certain people who are enlightened, who have much bigger, who are much more evolved than me, but it doesn't make me any less. So I think that's important, that macrobiotic teachers have a humility about what they're doing.
No, different things work for different people. Now, for me, I've chosen the path of macrobiotics because that's the best path I have come across, and all I can do is follow my own path, and whoever wants to join me is welcome. But I think in the end, we should make friends, and we should try to build a community with less ego and more leadership.
So, Joao, tell us about what you're doing now.
Okay, my life work has been organizing the One World Camp. At the same time, I've started in 1997 the Portuguese School of Feng Shui, because when I started to learn about macrobiotics, I wasn't so much interested in illness, in the meridians and in the liver, etc. What I was always interested was in the philosophy, but nobody was teaching me just a little bit about trigrams, and I was so fascinated about it, and a little bit of 9-star key, and I loved it. But whenever I wanted to go further, there was nothing available. So I started to learn Feng Shui, and I went on to Chinese metaphysics. And that's when I learned more about yin and yang and the trigrams. I just wrote a book on the I Ching, which is one of my main passions. So my interest in macrobiotics has always been more like the philosophical part of macrobiotics, which was I call the developing judgment. So
I love the I Ching, by the way. I love the I Ching.
Yeah, so I've had this school of Feng Shui and Chinese metaphysics, Chinese horoscopes, I Ching, Qi Dunjian. This is what I've been doing, and now we're going to start a school of macrobiotics. I've got someone who's very different from me and Maria, which is Simon Brown. He's on this project, and it's so challenging, but it's Simon comes from a completely different approach, but we decided on the curriculum, and I think it's good when you can work with someone that is so different from you. And it's presented me a course, and I agreed. I think that you've done a good job, and I think now I'm going to put a lot of energy in teaching macrobiotics and promoting and passing it on to other people. And we, in the future, would like to have a macrobiotic study house. We'd like to have a macrobiotic community in Portugal. That's my dream of myself together with Maria, because we love people. We love to have people around us and share our life. So those are the projects for the future. And we invited your father to come to Portugal.
Yeah.
In October, and we are promoting his seminar. I've just bought a new school here, which is a very big investment, over $1 million euros.
Wow.
And now it's empty, you know, not empty, but almost empty. So I'm teaching over Zoom, you know, but it's such a big shock, you know. I used to love, you know, this place full of people, every weekend students, you know, 50, 60 students every weekend, and suddenly it was such a big shock to my system. But, you know, life goes on, and we're still trying to tick on. And you know what is the problem? The problem is if people don't meet, if people don't touch each other, if people don't hug each other, they're going to go crazy. No, mental illness is the last stage of illness, and that's right here, right now. No, this is a mental virus. You know, of course, it's a physical virus and it's killing people, but mostly it's an emotional challenge. So, and if we go into the fear mode, after fear comes mental illness, and mental illness is the end of humanity. Nietzsche used to say that humanity is going to divide into two.
Yes.
The ones are going to go more robotic and vaccines, more drugs, etc., and the others are going to go into the national style. And this is happening. It's happening now. It's kind of dividing now. You cannot be in the middle anymore. You choose one or the other. Now, this is something. One of the things is contributing for the coronavirus is medical institutions, drugs, vaccines, immunosuppressants. This is all that's causing weaker immunity. You can see, there's almost a direct relationship between how many medicines you've taken in your whole life and how much at risks you are from coronavirus. Medicine is the real cause of the coronavirus, one of the big causes. Okay, so you cannot fight the coronavirus with more drugs and more vaccines. It's a completely madness. So the only way to fight the coronavirus is by building a strong immunity. There's no other way.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And, I think we are in a very challenging time, but this is a transition into what Michio called the golden age. I think we are approaching the golden age, and the transition is difficult because we're getting rid of we're discharging as a humanity. We are discharging heavily some sickness, some deep sickness rooted within humanity. And that's one of the reasons we're facing everything we're facing. And we're going to have several, I think, difficult years, but macrobiotics will survive. Macrobiotics is one of the movements that's going to carry people into the next era. And we're going to see a huge flourishing of macrobiotic understanding in the future.
Yes, Joe. So what you're talking about is Homo spiritus. Of course, Homo sapiens sapiens is going to evolve into Homo spiritus, but at least half of the population have to die. So we're going to have a lot of instability, a lot of environmental problems, a lot of illness, a lot of confusion, a lot of economic upheaval, and part of the world is going to die, and another party is going to evolve into Homo spiritus. And Homo spiritus is the golden age. Of course, we all know that, because after the destruction by fire, we come into a new dawn, into a new era of humanity. Whether me and you are going to be here to live that times, I don't know. But but what is challenging at the moment, we always have to ask, why are we here? we are here because we've chosen to come at a very exciting time in history. And we are here because we have a role to play into this crucial time of humanity. In 2,000 or 3,000 years, maybe they're going to, if we are really clever, they're going to look at us as the heroes and the seeds for humanity. Maybe, that's
Yeah.
I truly believe in that we are part of this process. We've got immense opportunity to shine as individuals and as an organized group.
And you, Joao, with your powerful voice and leadership, and me as well, and everyone else who has a big voice and who has things to say, really should speak out now and should get the word out like you're doing. So yeah.
No more chickening. So that's why I'm here to support you. And the ones that are upset, don't take any notice of them. Let's just look onto the future. Okay?
Absolutely. Joao, what else do you have to say?
I think I've said it all, it says that, just be happy because whatever you do, just always take time for the things that you like to do, because life is about having fun.
Mm-hmm.
Life is about having a big dream and having lots of fun. So always do things that make you happy and live your life happy, because there's no other meaning to life. We are in this cycle of eternal reincarnation, and the ultimate goal of life is to have fun. So never forget to have fun. Go dance, enjoy, travel, do the things you like. Don't get obsessed with many things. And if your work is fun, that's the most important thing. My work is lots of fun, sometimes very stressful. But I always go dancing, I go to the beach, and every day I try to have fun. And so be happy and have fun.
Well, this conversation, I feel like it was more of a conversation than an interview. This conversation was a lot of fun for me because I really resonated with the things you're saying, and they're very inspiring, and you're a very passionate man, and I think you're going to do great things for the macrobiotic community with your wife Maria and your school and with Simon. So I'm extremely pleased with this conversation, and everything you said sounded great. So this is going to be on my website, themacrobioticdiet.com. I am also offering macrobiotic counseling, astrological counseling. I'm hosting a class with my mother, Judy Floor, which everyone should watch. And we'll put out a promo video for that very soon. And yeah, guys, reach out to me if you want to be interviewed. I'd love to interview you if you have a macrobiotic story to share, or just something that you think is worthwhile relating to macrobiotics. That's all I have. Joao, any final words?
No, just come and visit us in Portugal. We're organizing summer camp, still 8th to the 15th of August. Just join us. But I know that you can't travel. I invited a number of people from America. Unfortunately, nobody can come. I invited Edesco. I invited Betty and Zumdik, but you guys cannot travel into Europe now.
Not yet.
But if there's anyone in Europe that is listening to this conversation and wants to come and have some real human connection, come to the One World in Portugal. It's www.oneworldcamp.com. And if not this year, please join us in another year. And you too, Joe. I'm expecting you next year.
Yeah, thank you. Good, thank you. I will be there. This was wonderful. Thank you so much, Joao. Yeah, great having you. Great talking with you. And I'm sure we'll to be continued.
Okay, cheers.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.